Jamboy, a Jeli-cious Hero is a new game developed and published by Nakama Game Studio on September 25th on Steam and the Nintendo Switch. In this platforming game, you play as the titular Jamboy, who's on the run from the donut cops with his friend Billy and becomes accidentally consumed in the process, leading Jamboy to need to navigate through the body of this person in order to escape. In order to do this, Jamboy has the ability to jump off of walls in order to climb them and attack enemies that get in his path. The platforming parts of Jamboy are pretty typical of a side-scrolling platforming game, where there are some different variables like enemies you need to dodge, gaps to jump across, and parts of the stage to help you get higher or further. For people that have played a platforming game before, these are all the basic mechanics that you will know. In order to pass a level, you'll need to find a key hidden somewhere on that level and then use it to open a door leading to the next level. Once you find the key, it'll also act as an arrow pointing toward the door to give you an idea of where to go. I will say, the levels are pretty fun to go through. I'm a big fan of platforming games, so I jumped into this one pretty effortlessly. But even then, the controls are pretty easy to grasp for anybody that wants to jump into this one. There really aren't too many major obstacles you come across when it comes to the platforming aspect of the game, with most of the challenge coming from avoiding the enemies that can phase through the map like it isn't there and attack you. In my case, I usually spent more time trying to figure out how to get around the map to get to the key once I found it. And once I found the correct path, it was usually pretty simple to get to. But hidden around the levels are other collectibles you'll come across, like cassette tapes, unlockable soundtracks, or weapons. The cassette tapes will be what mostly gives you the story of the game and explain how Jamboy got in the predicament he's in, while weapons will give you some added attack power so you can take out enemies and then bosses with fewer hits, which you can easily find these weapon upgrades randomly placed around the levels leading up to the boss fight. But even without them, you won't have too much trouble beating the bosses, as they have some pretty predictable attack patterns and are fairly easy to avoid. The game itself is split into two parts overall. The first part being about escaping from the person that has consumed you, which more or less acts as a tutorial for the second part of the game, where you are now fighting off the invasion of mushrooms that had grown in the area. The two parts of the story are very oddly disjointed and don't really have much in the way of a singular goal between them. Jamboy's involvement with Billy leading to the events of the first chapter aren't really explained, and the second chapter of the game doesn't give any explanation to why Jamboy is even doing any of what he's doing. Which doesn't have to be a bad thing for platforming games, but it feels especially random in this game, as it switches from part 1 of the game to part 2. With the second part of the game playing a lot like the first, with some mechanics added in, like the mushrooms that you can hit in order to create new platforms you can jump off of. And some moving platform segments where you need to rush through obstacles as you ride on top of a watermelon frog-like creature. The second part of this game also incorporates collection quests, requiring you to find 6 of an item hidden around the map. These new elements that are added into the second chapter of the game feel really good, and they start to feel like it's ramping up a bit, but then none of these new things really come into play when it comes to the end boss, as it plays out mostly the same as the first boss, and then the game just kind of comes to an end. The game is very short, with my run of it only taking a little over an hour and a half to complete. During that time, I found the level designs and platforming to be fun. I really like platforming games, and I love exploring levels to find everything I can on them, which were the parts of this game that I had fun with and I can say are well done, with some good variety between the levels. There are some collectibles you can go back to the levels and grab, but the levels being so small as they are, it's pretty easy to find them. And sadly, it doesn't really add too much to the game if you go around and find them all. The little bits of the story that the cassettes add to the first part of the game don't really give too many details, which is probably one of my biggest gripes with the game. The story overall of Jamboy feels very disconnected as a complete game, with the first and second parts not having much to connect them together. Even the enemies and oddities throughout the levels don't really have any explanation. For the first part of the game, the setting takes place inside somebody, but all the enemies are based on foods like cookies and gingerbread men, which doesn't give any explanation as to why they're attacking you in the first place. Along with the random razor blades and eyeballs that act as obstacles in your path, there's some creativity there, but it all just feels random. Then for the first part of the game, each level basically has the same goal, find the key and then exiting the level. For the second part, they do add some more variety to the goals and the levels, which is nice, especially when new mechanics come to play. But the story itself just kinda exists and is more confusing than anything. I would have liked it if the story came more into play with what was going on or what we were trying to do, especially in the second half, where each level feels disconnected from the rest entirely and the collection quests have no synchronization between them on the kinds of items you're collecting. Jamboy being a silent protagonist just doesn't seem to have any personality or reason behind what he's doing. The game does make some jokes on it, but in my opinion it just brings it more to the front how awkward the story is as a result. Overall, I'd give Jamboy a Jeli-cious Hero a 1.5 out of 5. There's some nice level designs and artwork in this game, and I had some fun with the platforming aspects. But sadly, the missions and goals of the game started to get repetitive with each level, and each set of levels kind of looked the same, just with different placement of items. The game mechanics work well, and the game did play all the way through without any issues. But there's just too much randomness and oddities in the story and levels to really get too invested in it. And by the time things start picking up, the game just kind of comes to an end and the credits roll. With the game only being a little over an hour and a half in length, there really isn't too much here. But if you played Jamboy, let us know in the comments what you thought of it. Do you agree with my thoughts, or did you have an entirely different experience? And if you like this review and want to see more, click that like button and subscribe. If you have suggestions for other games you think we should play, let us know as well. Until next time, this has been Brad with the Bickering Nerds.